I want to welcome everybody to the inaugural event of the first Expert Connect. Thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm Debbie Barnett from Mah Jongg, and twice a month I will be interviewing entrepreneurs and experts in the Mah Jongg community. Each event will take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, depending on how long the question and answer portion is. Now, without further ado, I'd like to welcome our first guest, entrepreneur and author, Barbara Barrett. Barbara, welcome to the first Expert Connect.
Debbie, I'm very pleased to be here, especially since I got lost for a little bit there. And thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yeah, technology sometimes is challenging, but boy, what we couldn't do many years ago is amazing compared to today. So I'll take it just the way it is. All righty. So Barb, tell me, when did you first become interested in Mah Jongg?
I retired several years ago, and shortly after that, I relocated to Florida for half the year, and we had a condo there that we had for a few years. But I went down there. My husband continued to work in Iowa, and I didn't know a soul. And so this was one of the things that I did right away to begin to meet people. And I had to learn how to play. So this was in 2009. So that's more than 14 years ago. And I've been playing ever since.
Well, it's an incredible game. We all know that. So I'm not surprised that you got hooked on it like most of us do. All right, so tell us what inspired you to write a mystery series about Mah Jongg, and was this your first series, and were you always a writer?
Where to start with that? Well, according to my fourth grade teacher, Mrs. White, yes, I've always been a writer, at least since I was 10 years old, and I have been writing different things throughout my career. Actually, back in my late 30s, I started writing novels. I'd reached the point in my life where I had two wonderful children, a great husband, a pretty good job, a lovely home, and I'm going, okay, now what's next? And I turned to writing because I got inspired by a soap opera heroine that some of you may know, on Another World. It's no longer online, or it's no longer live, but Felicia Gallant was a romance writer on this show. And Felicia made all kinds of money. She was so glamorous. She wore a boa. And so I thought I could do that. Sure. So I spent basically the next 10 years writing my first novel, which has yet to be published. I still want to do that someday. But then after that amount of time, I discovered I'd been doing a lot of things wrong, and I joined a group called the Romance Writers of America, and I learned from them over the next several years. Okay, I'm going on too far maybe, but I wrote romance novels to start with, because I thought that was my best entree into the publishing world. I was thinking this about the same time that thousands and thousands of other people were thinking it, and there was just a lot of competition. So I was not actually published until 2012, which was only a little over 11 years ago. And only because by this time, digital publishing had come into its own. And I was picked up by a small press, and I stayed with them the first several years. I wrote 2 trilogies, and 2 independent books, and 2 novellas, which are 35,000 words or less, for them. And then I got to the point where I wanted more control over my career. And so about 6 years ago, maybe, I decided I was going to go out and become an independent publisher on my own. I wrote one series, one more romance series, and then in 2018, I finally got around to doing what I've always wanted to do, which is write mystery novels. I was first introduced to Agatha Christie, if anybody's familiar with her, back 50 some years ago when I was expecting my first child. And I needed something to do. I went to the Drake Library in Iowa, and I discovered her novels, and I started going through them before the baby came. So I went back to the genre that I wanted to explore. And then it was, now what am I going to do? What am I going to write about? Because cozy mysteries, I guess I should explain this part, are the Agatha Christie type. The murder takes place off screen usually. It's pretty bloodless because I don't like blood. And so I decided that was going to be the genre that I was going for. But I needed a niche because everybody else, that was the big thing that was happening in the publishing world with cozy mysteries. And in particularly, people were writing about food, culinary mysteries, baking mysteries, wine tasting, scrapbooking, and all kinds of things. So I needed to do something that I knew something about. And the one thing that I knew a little bit about, because I had been teaching it actually by that time, was Mah Jongg. And so I decided to write a Mah Jongg mystery, a mystery that involved people that play Mah Jongg. And I don't know if this is the right time, but this was it. This is the first book. This is Cracks in a Marriage. Each of my books in this feature some Mah Jongg term somehow in the title. And so even though some might suggest why was crack spelled wrong, those of you who know Mah Jongg know that it's just perfectly the way it should be.
Exactly. Well, I have to admit this. I don't typically read mysteries. However, when I first learned about your series and how it involved Mah Jongg, it changed my mind. And I was delighted when I read the first book, which you just held up, that was the first one, Cracks in a Marriage. And I also read Bamboozled. So I just want to say that cozy mysteries, definitely. And I love the friendships that are bound between the four main protagonists in your book. It's just unbelievable. So can you tell me more about that? What inspired that whole piece with these four main protagonists?
First of all, I made a decision that's probably one of the stupidest things I've ever done, which was to decide that I'm going to have four different protagonists rather than one. And I would rotate who was the lead character in each of the books. But that meant I've got to think in terms of four different personalities as I'm writing the book. I have, because it's written in her point of view. Long time ago, when I was still working, we had this thing called the DISC personality assessment tool that I took a few times. I don't know if anyone is familiar with it, but DISC spells out, see if I can remember them, dominance, influence, S is for steadfastness, and C is for conscientiousness. And it's a questionnaire that you fill out. And once you've answered as honestly as you can, it points to what kind of personality do you have. This was very popular in the 90s when people were into team playing and teams of particularly working well together. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go back to that because I'm going to base each of my characters on one of those four different things and try to work from there. So because every time I had taken this assessment, because I so wanted to be a dominant character.
Mhm.
I really did. And I never came out that way. I was always a cross between steadfastness and conscientiousness. The good friend, the person who continues to play by the rules, the person who dots all the T's, that kind of thing. So there are two characters in the book. One is the conscientious one is the steadfast one, the good friend. Then I also have the influencer that I have a little tiny bit of in my personality. And I've got a writer that I stick in
In
the
there,
series.
yes, yes.
And then the dominant one is the one who starts the series off. The first two books are she's the main character, and she comes back again in a later book. What I really, first of all, as I was writing this, keep in mind, I had been playing Mah Jongg at this point for almost 10 years, where I was in Florida. And I had made some incredible friendships over that time. And somehow I wanted to blend that idea into the books I was writing. Now, the first book came out, and I had several people that I knew in my Mah Jongg group who were buying the book because they wanted to see themselves in the book.
Mhm.
And I had to disappoint them because there was no one person that I was basing anything on, because I was doing that for legal purposes so that I wouldn't get into trouble with anybody. But it is kind of an amalgamation of the different personalities you run into when you're playing Mah Jongg. And all of you who play Mah Jongg that are out there, you know what I'm talking about. You know that there are people you play with who have certain ways they play, and you either decide you're going to get along with those ways or you're going to work around them somehow. You know that there are people that like to play fast and people that take a little more time, that there are people that like to talk about, they're kind of like the sportscaster of your group, who are announcing what's happening the whole time, and you're wanting to hit them because you don't want anybody else to know what direction you're going. But anyhow, I tried to bring as many of those personalities in as I could. And in fact, in the first book, I've got the know-it-all of the group, who turns out to be the one whose husband is murdered. And she is the key suspect. And for once, she has to turn to these four women and ask for their help so that she can clear her name before she gets arrested. That's a big step for her. She shows up in a few later books also because she's kind of learned her lesson, but she still is pretty bossy. I branch off as I get into the later books. I don't always feature people that I know from Mah Jongg, but each of the books starts with my four characters playing Mah Jongg, and it ends with the four of them playing Mah Jongg after they've solved the case. The books are not how to play Mah Jongg by any means, because I wouldn't purport to be an expert in that way.
Mhm.
Although I do, like I said, I have taught the how to play several times, but it's there as the anchor for what this is all about. So,
And the characters are so relatable. I mean, it just, you just kind of feel like it's all familiar. Let's put it that way.
good, because that's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, the personalities, and I think everybody who reads these books can say, I know somebody who's like that character. I know somebody who's like that character. And it's really kind of neat that way. And just the whole experience of it. But I love the way these, even though the one person whose husband, what's her name now, the character? I should remember it. I just read it.
The one whose husband is murdered?
Yes.
Now you got me, because it's been a few years. Hold on just a moment.
Well, while you're looking, so she's the one that seems to be the most contentious, and the others are not that fond of her, it appears. But when she finally comes around and needs help and is showing more of her vulnerable side, the way they all, bond together to help. And I don't want to give away anything about the book, but I just think it's beautiful. I do love it.
Well, good. Her name was Olivia, by the way.
Olivia. Oh my God. I just read it. So, shame on me. I think everyone can relate to that. I mean, honestly, I could read something, or I've gone to movies and the next day somebody said, "What movie did you see?" Oh boy, that's embarrassing. But anyway, so tell us more about the series. How many books are in this series? And do you have any future plans for writing any additional Mah Jongg themed books?
Okay, well, right now there are 9 books in the series. And I don't know that I ever planned to write 9, but after I'd given Sydney, the dominant character, I'd given her 2 books to start with. I had to begin to even the playing field. And so they basically each get 2 books in which they are the main character. The 9th book, I wrote it with the idea that it could be the last book in the series, because of some things that happened that I don't want to talk about too much, but it could be a stopping point. But I'm not ready to give it up, and I've got a couple more titles in mind. And when we were playing one day, one of my friends came up with another title that was Blood on the Mah Jongg Tile, and I have no idea what I would do as to what a story would be about that, but I don't want to leave that one alone. So I'm considering probably next year. I have some things I need to finish up this year, but next year I think I'm going to go back and I'm going to do a 2.0 series and have maybe 3 more books to wrap it up. And then we'll see where we go from there.
Yeah, I can't wait to get back to the next book. I mean, it's just, I love it. I'm like, what's next? What's next?
Good. I took the first 5 books and I put them into a digital 1 book. So all 5 books can be purchased if you want to buy it digitally. At the various places that are on my website. I can't do that with the print versions, but and I've discovered since I started this that people really like the print version more than people do digital. And how many times have I been told I'd like to hold it in my hands when I'm reading it? So I am trying to move out when I'm doing other reading. I'm trying to put everything digital on my phone, just so I stop collecting so many books.
Yeah.
That you get to a point in your life where you're ready to get rid of stuff.
Exactly. But there's that feeling, Barb, of having the book in your hand. There's something about that. I don't know exactly. It's almost like I can compare it to the feeling that you get when you're in a library. There's something very mystical and magical about that.
Right. And so I've recognized that. I have print versions of all of them on Amazon and on Barnes and Noble, and I may be going into drafted digital in the future so that I've got it available several different ways.
Excellent. All right, I want to ask you also, you've written obviously quite a few books. You've got a lot of writing under your belt. What do you think has contributed to your success as an author?
I guess the first thing is diligence, just sticking with it and believing in myself, because my sales haven't always been that great, but I believe in what I'm doing and I love what I'm doing. And I wouldn't be wanting, I take my laptop with me on trips. I take it all over the country. I have a special laptop bag that goes underneath the seat when I'm flying. So I have to have it with me. I need to be writing most days. So I'd say the diligent first of all, Secondly, I think with this series in particular, but I've tried to do it with the what I'm currently writing also, is the friendship and the community that I'm trying to portray in the book,
Mhm.
the books. Because I think people can relate to that, even if
Yes.
they could care about. Now, there's some people that will want to be the people that are the solvers, that love riddles, and more power to them for joining, liking cozies for that reason.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
me when I'm reading other cozies. But there are others who just like the idea of these people that get along with each other. They're different types of people. They've come from different backgrounds. But now, and I don't think I mentioned that these are retirees. These are ladies whose I've never announced their ages, but over 60 anyhow, who they're not ready to call it quits yet. They're still very active. And that's one of the things I've tried to portray in the books too.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah. I mean, definitely the whole community thing and the friendship and really hit home in those first two books I read. So let me ask you this. If somebody now, and I'll tell you this about me, I have written a little bit. I yeah, written a little bit, okay. And I did take writing classes and I got involved in a lot of online studying and learning. And boy, there's a lot to learn in the whole world of writing, but I enjoyed it immensely. I just have other things like my Mah Jongg businesses that get
Mhm.
away from me to getting back to that. But maybe one day when I retire, I will. So if somebody has thought about writing and they wanted a tip or two about getting started, what advice would you give them?
Um, I think the first thing I would suggest is um, know why you want to write. Are you out there because you want to get known? Or do you want to be respected for your authority in a particular field? Do you want to make money? Or do you want to just try your hand at it because there's something inside you that won't go away, that you just have to get out on paper or on the screen? I think you need to know that as you get into this, and maybe you'll be changing that idea as you go along if you continue with it. But you're going to be disappointed, I believe, if you are thinking you're going to do one thing and it doesn't, you're not um, setting yourself up and writing to whatever that area is that you want to write to. The other thing I would suggest is that you need to know, you don't, there are a lot of people that are called pantsers, and they when they sit down to write, they just start writing and they go wherever they're going to go. But the whole thing is you just have to be ready to stay with it, and be diligent and complete the task, even if it takes you. Like I said, my first book took 10 years and I still don't have it published.
Wow.
It doesn't take quite that much time anymore, because now it's more like 3 to 4 months for me. But those are two things I would suggest. And then if you do have a finished product and you're serious about getting it published, find yourself a really good editor, because even though you think you know it all, that you've got your grammar down, that you've got your spelling, you got all these things on your
No.
laptop that will help you do it, you would be surprised how many mistakes we make, and how many times you have to go through a finished draft before it's right. So find a good editor. I have 3 proofreaders, and besides a really wonderful editor, and even my proofreaders miss things.
Yeah.
I have to go back through after they've done it, but I appreciate all their help.
Yeah, and I can relate 100% to that because I cannot believe how somebody can read it and find tons of errors, and then you go back and fix all those, and somebody else reads it and they find a ton more errors. And
I
it's
know.
hard to believe. And yes, even coming back from the editor at the very end, you find errors. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm that one person who can read a book or read an article or a menu, and I find the mistakes. So it's common. It's pretty common.
Mm-hmm.
For
And they're
sure.
going to be, I've told myself they're going to be there even after 3 proofreaders. And I've gone through it, I don't know how many times, and my editor has. They slip in, and hopefully the readers will be forgiving, because they need to know that I've put that much effort into making it as perfect as it can be.
Yeah, exactly. And you kind of wonder whether people, what they think, because if you've never written, you can't possibly appreciate how difficult it is to get it all right.
True,
You
true.
know, in the beginning anyway. So I'm sure that over time you've gotten a lot better at your craft. Now,
I hope so.
yeah, oh, I'm sure you have. So I know you are an avid Mah Jongg player.
Mm-hmm.
What do you take away from your whole experience as a Mah Jongg player, with your friends, and tell me what you get out of it, what you love so much about it?
Okay. Oh, one of the things I didn't mention with the first question,
Mhm,
when you asked me how I first learned about Mah Jongg,
mhm.
is that the group that I learned from were playing a different version of Mah Jongg. I don't know if anybody has heard of Wright Patterson,
Oh, yes.
but that's how I learned. And Wright Patterson does not have the jokers in it that we have in the national version, which is what I mainly write about in my books. And I had to learn, and the other things, the dragons and the flowers and the winds are all much more important than they are in national. Oh, you got the book.
Yeah, I played a
I got
couple.
mine out to show everybody too.
I have played a couple times. Well, maybe more than a couple. I am so intrigued by this version of the game. It is so much fun. It's challenging,
That's
but
true.
but the variety, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's a book of hands rather than a card
Yes.
of hands. But and there's not, once you pick a hand, there's not like a variety of that hand that you can play. They're all listed in the book. And what a fun game.
Oh, good. I'm glad you feel that way, because a lot of friends
Yeah.
who've tried to play, who've gone from national to Wright Patterson,
Mm-hmm.
um, hate it, because it's different. That you have to, each game you have to exchange chips, and there isn't, even though one person wins, other people can get more chips, and it doesn't, you don't know the winner until the very end of the game. Anyhow, I was playing that for a couple years before I was introduced to national, and then and I got involved with national as well. So what is it I like? What do I get from it besides just getting out of the house
Mm-hmm.
twice a week to play and spending time with friends? The group that I meet with have lunch together. It's a real social thing. But it's also a brain thing, and it keeps the mind active, and it keeps you thinking about strategy. And I could never play bridge because I don't think I could remember everything that's been played. But I can pretty much remember everything that's been played in a Mah Jongg game, so that I know what I can, where I can go and where I can't really go anymore. So that's what I would say are the things I really love about Mah Jongg.
Oh, super, super. All right, I just want to, before I ask the last question, there are a couple of questions in chat. We are going to open this up to questions and answers as soon as we're done with the interview. So I will go ahead and take those questions. And I don't know if you have chat open as well.
Yeah, I can look at it. I see there's only one in there so far.
Okay, there is one, and then one comment about Wright Patterson. Okay,
Oh, okay.
So my next question is how can the viewers get in touch with you to learn more about where to buy your book?
Thank you. Thank you. My favorite question. I have a website that I'm really pleased with, and you can get there by www.barbarabarrettbooks.com. And I think you've got that somewhere in case people didn't catch it right now. You can also email me at barbarabarrett747@gmail.com. But I prefer you can find the links to my buy links on my website to all of my books, not just my Mah Jongg, but my romance. My romance will be coming back out again. I've got a lot of them off right now, but my new series, which is called Nailed at Home Renos, just in case, so I can say that. But yes, go to my website. And there's a place if you want to make a comment there. I will get back to you if you do have a comment.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I definitely encourage anybody who likes mysteries to read this series. And and I might have missed it when I asked one question, I think it had 3 in 1. And how many are in this Mah Jongg mystery series? How many books?
9.
There are 9. Okay. I could have missed that one. All right. Okay, so I'm going to open up to Q&A, and if anybody has a question, put it in chat, and then I'll just say, go ahead and ask your question. You can unmute yourself and ask directly. I'm going to change the mode on my screen so that Barbara is in full view. Let's see if I can do this right. I'm learning a lot about Zoom now, having planning this interview. And it worked. Beautiful.
Very good.
Beautiful.
Scary for me to see this cute. Yeah.
Okay. So Stacy asked, and I'll just ask it since she already put it in chat. Are the books available in audio book format?
No. That's the easy answer. And the longer part of that is that audio is very expensive for a small author like me to produce. So I've stayed away from audio up until now. But someday, maybe, who knows?
Someday, right? Yeah, I believe that I had checked that out as well at one point. And when I saw the cost involved and the steps you have to go through, I just put it off my radar. So, all right, now let's see if I have, barbarabarrettbooks.com. Is that correct? I think I might have typed it in wrong. Is it barbarabarrettbooks.com?
Yes.
Okay.
And you might have to go www.barbarabarrettbooks.com, but I think just my name will get you there.
Yeah, and I'm going to put the link in the video description as well. So after the video is uploaded to YouTube, so it'll be there as well. Any questions? Please just go ahead and either unmute and just start talking or put it in chat. Let me see if there's anybody over here. We do have people watching on YouTube as well. Any more questions?
I have a question.
Okay, go right
I said
ahead.
it in chat, but I'll ask it. Do they need to be read in any particular order?
No, each book is standalone.
Okay.
But I've discovered with cozy readers that they like to start with one and work their way all the way through sequentially. And so usually when I go to a book signing or something where I've got set books on sale, I make sure that the first book and the current book are what I've taken.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and I think we have, like Phyllis says, do you think I would find your books in my public library?
Only if you're in my local one here in Iowa, or if you are in Florida. But ask your librarian if you want to get them. Ask your librarian to order them because they are available for libraries.
Okay, I do live in Florida. I live in Venice. Where are you?
Oh, no, I'm in Celebration.
Oh.
And
Oh,
I mean, basically, I have to go around and give
Yeah.
them to the libraries most of the time. And
2 hours away.
yeah, I can't do that.
yeah. So tell me, what is the process to get books in libraries?
It depends on the library. Some of them have policies that they just won't take a local author unless you know you're really well known. Others are just thrilled to get anything. And I've noticed that in my local library in Celebration, there are books that I never gave them that they've gone ahead and gotten. So yeah, it's just a matter that the librarian there has to be aware of me somehow. I go to a couple conferences for readers every year. I just came back from one in Maryland, in fact, and there are librarians in the audience, and I try to make it easy for them to get all the information about me so that they can go back and order those books.
Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent. All right, let's see. Now, this is an interesting question. Okay.
Oh, can I interrupt you just for a second? Because
Sure.
it has to do with libraries, sort of.
Okay, no
And
problem.
that is that I am available to speak to library or to book clubs, either over Zoom. Well, over Zoom. Let's just say that way. Anything maybe locally in Florida, I'd be happy to do, or in Iowa when I'm here, or in Minnesota when I'm there. But Zoom works quite well for book clubs.
Oh, excellent. And I never thought about that because I always wanted to belong to, even a writing club or a book club, and I don't because I can't travel. They're usually too far from me. But I never thought about looking into Zoom ones. That would be great.
Yeah,
That would
Zoom
be
has been
excellent.
very great in since we've all been using it the last few years.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
not just Zoom, but the various other forms of it too.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I was just thrilled to be able to figure out presenter mode, let alone,
Yeah.
and I'm using Zoom all the time, but I'm learning every day something new. All right. So here's the question from Beryl. How do the Mah Jongg players in your book series use their game skills to solve the mystery? Is that something we want to give away, or do you want to give a hint?
That's my husband, everybody. And he threw me a ringer, I think. But anyhow,
Uh-oh.
anyhow, how do they use their gaming skills? Well, the strategy that you have to develop when you are playing a game. You're looking ahead. You are taking your best shot and looking at your strength and the tiles you've got and what tiles do you still have to get. And so it's those skills of strategizing and thinking ahead that I think help my players in my mystery solve the case.
And I can see that. I can definitely see that. Okay, and Donna had a comment. She said, libraries can usually order books through ZipBooks. My library will purchase anything you want that way. Something to ask about.
Okay.
I never knew about that.
Is that something I have to, that you're suggesting I ask about, or each of you that's
No, I
listening?
think anybody who wants to know, Phyllis was asking
Oh,
about
okay.
it being available in her library. And I think so for anybody who is interested in being able to get the book and hold a real book in their hands, that libraries are probably pretty up on this Zip Books, it appears. And that might be something worth asking your library, because didn't you say your library will get any book that you ask? Pretty much.
Yeah, the one in Florida. Yeah.
In
The
Florida.
one here in Iowa, not so much.
Okay.
But they have limited funds, but they're so thrilled that somebody wants something in particular, usually, that they'll go out of their way to get something for them. And then they'll start to promote it too.
Okay. All right. All right. Any more questions? Let's see. YouTube viewers are pretty quiet tonight. And yeah, they're quiet. No questions from that side. Any more questions from anybody on Zoom? Hopefully I didn't miss anybody. No, I don't think so. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up, Barbara. And I want to thank you so much for being my very first guest.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
Yeah, and it was, I have to admit, I mean, I'm human, so I usually like to admit things. And, this was a little nerve-wracking for the first time, but I think it went very well. And I was just thrilled to have you on tonight.
Thank you. Well, I'm assuming that most of the people that have tuned in play Mah Jongg or have some interest in Mah Jongg. You're my people. And I hope that if you check me out, that you find something in my books that you can relate to.
Okay, I do have another question from your husband.
I saw
it. Where do your murder processes come from?
I think he's worried about that personally. I don't know. I don't like to use guns or knives. I told you I didn't like blood. So I look for things that are other ways to kill somebody. A terrible way to do it. I've used poison once. I do a lot of bopping on the head with things. In the first book, the person is out for a run and is hit in the head with a log. The second book, there's not a statue. She's won an award, and it's a heavy award, and that is used to clobber her too. I've not trying to think of all the other parts, but well, I try to keep varying it.
Yeah, let's let them keep them guessing a little bit. They'll have to just read to find out.
Yes, yes. Well, I said that I use a title or a term from Mah Jongg in each of the books, and so I kind of let that lead me in a way. Not so well. Cracks in a marriage, and the cracks in that marriage was, the marriage wasn't going well. The husband was cheating on the wife. Bamboozled, which is the bamboo thing. There's a person who bamboozles another person who is working for her. So yeah, and that sort of suggests to me how the murder can be committed. And thank you, Verl.
Yeah, he's going to ask you the tough questions. My husband does the same thing. So, all right. Well, I think that does it. Unless there's any other questions that come through, girl, are you going to ask another one? No. Okay. Now I do have another Expert Connect coming up on the 21st of May, and the guest is Julie Alexander from I Love Maj, so please tune in for that. It should be very fun and informative interview with Julie. She's a really wonderful gal. And I just want to say thank you again to everybody who joined in tonight. It's been a pleasure as always. And for my regular followers for Wednesday evenings, skill building. I'm getting my events mixed up. I will see you on Wednesday evening. And Barbara, thank you so much again. I cannot wait to get back to your books. They're the perfect book to bring into bed and read at night. I mean, literally. Okay. Cozy up for the cozy mystery.
Thank you so much again.
All right. Thank you again, and good night, everybody. Thank you so much for joining in.